This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Mali now hopes for removal of ECOWAS sanctions after appointing a civilian prime minister. Uganda to take part in coronavirus vaccine trials in November. And Armenia accuses Turkey of directly supporting Azerbaijan as heavy fighting continued for a second day. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. And tonight, I'm alongside my colleague Uche, who has our business headlines. Uche.
Thank you, Richard. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. South Africa's government wants strict conditions for any guarantees it provides to help its national airline. And a federal judge blocks President Donald Trump's order to ban TikTok in the U.S. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Uche. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. So good to have you with us. Let's begin in China, where top leaders of the Communist Party have met to discuss a draft plan for economic and social development. General Secretary Xi Jinping chaired the Politburo meeting in Beijing on the 14th five-year plan and targets for 2035. The Politburo has agreed that proposals have been drawn from all sectors of society nationwide. It has decided to send a revised draft for deliberation at the next plenary session of the country's and party's Central Committee late next month. The leaders also discussed regulations on strengthening the work of the Central Committee. Heavy fighting continues for a second day between Armenia and Azeri forces over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Dozens of people are reported dead. Both sides are accusing each other of using heavy artillery. Armenia has also accused Turkey of providing direct military support to Azerbaijan, but Azerbaijan has denied this. The international community is calling for an end to hostilities and the start of talks. The European Union has also warned against foreign interference, saying the conflict threatens regional stability. Russia has also urged the former Soviet Republic to stop all military activity that could further inflame tensions. The appointment of a Malian diplomat as the country's civilian prime minister now paves the way for the lifting of paralyzing sanctions slapped by regional bloc ECOWAS. Mokhtar Owani was previously Mali's ambassador to the United Nations and the country's foreign minister. The Economic Community of West African States cut off financial flows to Mali and closed borders after the August ouster of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The appointment of civilians to lead the country during its transitional period had been a key demand by ECOWAS. Retired Colonel Ba Ndao and junta leader Colonel Assimi Goïta were sworn in as president and vice president last Friday. On the same day, ECOWAS said it would lift sanctions once a civilian prime minister was named. Well, how does this change things in Mali's transitional journey? Let's now speak to Achike Chude, an African affairs analyst joining us live from Lagos, Nigeria. Achike Chude, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Let me begin by asking you, do you see ECOWAS now removing sanctions slapped on Mali's leadership? And how long might this take?
Yes, well, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. It's inevitably going to happen. I believe it is going to happen soon. Some of the things that ECOWAS had asked for have been done. The appointment of a civilian to head the interim, the transitional government, and then one other key demand was the appointment of a civilian prime minister. This have been done, though the interim president has some military background, but the prime minister is wholly a civilian. And then again, but I think that it's also going to be dependent on on the release of prisoners. Of course, we know that after the coup, some political actors were taken prisoners and locked up. And I want to believe that in as much as ECOWAS is anxious to lift the sanctions so that Mali can, begin to tread the path of civility once more, I think it is important for ECOWAS to ensure that these civilians are released so that sanctions will be released eventually. I think it's going to happen in a matter of days. And I see the transitional, the interim government, especially the new president, making moves in that direction to ensure that these prisoners are released. Once that happens, I believe in the next few days, ECOWAS will lift the sanctions.
All right, Achike Echude, thank you for sharing your perspective with us. Now, given what we know about the new prime minister, what do we expect of Mokhtar Ouane?
Well, from the corridors of the United Nations as the permanent representative to the global body on behalf of his government, the Malian government, to the capitals of, to world capitals as foreign minister of Mali, as well as the diplomatic corridors of ECOWAS Secretariat. He is somebody that has garnered loads and loads of experience in international diplomacy. And there is nothing at this stage that Mali needs that somebody with a cool head, somebody with the kind of experience that Ouane has, especially given the background of the current situation in Mali. I think cool heads are needed all around, and there is nothing better than a diplomat of the standing of Ouane or Mokhtar Ouane to calm frayed nerves in Mali. So I know that he has the experience and he has the temperament and the character to bring some level of cool-headedness in the way things are done in Mali moving forward. So I think these are the qualities that he's going to bring into governance. He's aware of the situation. He is somebody, again, he has worked within the labyrinth of ECOWAS, the secretariat, and capitals of ECOWAS as advisor to the sub-regional body. And so he's somebody that is well known to members of the 15-nation ECOWAS bloc, and that would also help to serve him in his desire to move Mali forward as prime minister.
Okay, Achike Echude, thanks for sharing. Speaking of what the Malian people need, let's take a step back and talk about the people of Mali who protested since June against President Boubacar Keïta's government. What must the new leadership do immediately to make them feel there has been a meaningful change from your perspective?
Yes, I think what the first thing they need to do is to give the Malians a sense of a new beginning. And I think that is key. Because for months, Mali has been embroiled in all kinds of political, economic crisis. And so this is the time to move Mali forward. And so the changes that have taken place in Mali in the past few weeks and the resolutions to some of the crises, I think, has given the Malian citizens a sense of something new happening within their society. So the duty of the transitional government is to continue along that path, to consolidate on the gains that have been made in the past few weeks, and to begin to give a new sense of direction to the Malian people. They need to begin the process of healing because there have been a lot of frayed nerves as a result of the crisis of the past few months. And they need to begin to reach out across, the broad spectrum of those who make up Mali. And then also, even at the regional level, they need to begin to bridge the gap between some of the regions that have been that have had this suspicion towards Bamako, the capital, and forge that consensus that is needed for nation building. Only when they have done that, building the process for peace, can they begin to look at some of the economic issues bedeviling Mali and begin to do a little bit of those things, start the process, so that by the time elections are organized, then the new government will take over from where they have stopped.
All right, Achike Chude speaking to us live from Lagos. We certainly appreciate your insight and analysis. Let's turn our attention now to Uganda, where Uganda is set to take part in coronavirus vaccine trials in November. The vaccine uses self-replicating RNA technology and is already being trialed in the UK. Leon Sinyange has more.
The vaccine has been developed by the Imperial London College in the United Kingdom. Uganda's Virus Research Institute will conduct part of the clinical trials for the vaccine, which will take place in 3 stages before it is recommended for general public use. Health officials say the first trials in Uganda will be conducted this November on 10 volunteers. If successful, more trials will be done on about 200 people. The final stage of the random clinical trials is expected to take place in June next year and will be conducted on at least 3,000 people. Health officials say the trial will focus on the safety of the vaccine and how the human body responds to it.
We are yet to conclude the collaboration with the major universities in other countries that currently have vaccines that they are running. Many of them are in phase 1 or phase 2. It will depend on where we make headway so that we can begin our trials here in Uganda.
Now, despite support from international partners in the vaccine project, funding still remains the major challenge. Ugandan researchers are also developing a COVID-19 rapid test kit. Scientists are optimistic this will offer cheaper solutions to dealing with the pandemic. At the start of this week, Uganda had recorded 7,530 COVID-19 cases and 73 deaths. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Health authorities in Tunisia have been advising vulnerable groups to get a flu shot this year. Experts warn it is possible to contract both the seasonal flu and the coronavirus. Tunisia has seen a sharp spike in COVID-19 cases in recent weeks. Adnan Shawalshi has more from Tunis.
The Director General of the Pasteur Institute in Tunis declared that social groups most prone to contracting COVID-19, as well as the seasonal flu, are older people, patients with chronic diseases, as well as pregnant women.
The
impact of the seasonal flu should not be neglected or ignored. We are at the beginning of the flu season in autumn and winter, while we're witnessing the spread of the coronavirus. The symptoms can look the same, but the two illnesses are caused by different viruses.
Dr. Hashmi Luzir added that 310,000 doses of vaccine against the seasonal flu will be available in hospitals, private pharmacies and clinics on the 1st of October.
The flu vaccine is necessary. It does not cure or protect from COVID-19, but limits it. The two viruses are different in terms of immunity. The seasonal flu vaccine will help healthcare units determine the nature of the virus. Otherwise, if the most vulnerable people do not opt for the flu vaccine, confusion will reign as hospitals are already overwhelmed.
Tunisia's COVID-19 task force reported 50 infection cases per 100,000 inhabitants. The number of cases requiring hospitalization has also increased.
In this period, if we seek to reduce the pace of the spread of the virus, we do not have any choice except the implementation of the preventive measures. This is a shared responsibility. We are all responsible for the protection of those most vulnerable.
Infectious disease experts warned of a possible second wave of COVID-19 if citizens do not follow health protocols.
According to the COVID-19 task force, the sharp rise in recent days in the number of deaths, infections, hospitalizations and calls to the emergency units is alarming and very dangerous. Experts say the risk of infection will increase over the next few days, which will be characterized by falling temperatures and cold. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Egypt has been witnessing a drop in tourist numbers after requiring visitors to provide a negative coronavirus test. To make the process easier for much-needed visitors, the country's Red Sea resort airports are offering PCR tests on arrival. Here is Adel El Mahroui with more.
from 100,000 passengers arriving daily down to just 2,000, Sharm el-Sheikh Airport is suffering. To get approved as a safe destination, this airport has to fulfill COVID-19 pandemic requirements that suit almost every country in the world. That's on top of additional security measures introduced after a 2015 Russian plane crash.
We've installed thermal cameras to take the fever readings for passengers and staff. It does facial recognition and warns if passengers are not wearing masks. If someone passes by with a high fever, the quarantine team intervenes for a thorough checkup and to diagnose.
Egypt has recently required all its arriving passengers to provide a negative PCR test for COVID-19. To encourage tourists to visit, an exception has been made at 4 Red Sea airports. Instead of doing a PCR before traveling, visitors can take the test here at the airport at just $30 per person.
It's a subsidized price, of course. Usually PCR costs from $100 to $150 if a tourist takes the test at home. Even for Egyptians, taking it here costs $75. And the purpose for that is to increase the number of visitors or help those who didn't have time to take it at home.
Egypt has invited ambassadors from 20 countries to inspect the measures in place here at Sharm el-Sheikh Airport, hoping to increase visitor confidence. Since the country opened its airspace in July, only 250,000 tourists have come. That's less than 10% of those arriving during the same time last year. The government says none of them reported COVID-19 infection after their trip to Egypt. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a loss in tourism revenues estimated at $1 billion monthly. Airports are definitely the first impression for any visitor to any country. And the Egyptian government want to maintain that the COVID-19 measures taken would give a message of comfort and safety to all visitors coming to this Red Sea resort city. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
Time now for a short break. You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. Stay tuned for what's ahead. Zimbabwe government schools reopen only for students to find teachers are away on strike. And Niger hope for an end to flooding, which forced thousands of victims to be sheltered in schools.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. Government schools have reopened in Zimbabwe, but in the absence of teachers who are on strike over pay. There are also concerns over provision of water and protective gear at schools. Farai Mwakatuya has the details.
It's the first day of school in the most unusual but important term for students, some of whom will be writing final examinations. 6 months away from school due to the COVID-19 pandemic means there's a lot of ground to make up, a situation that won't be helped by the fact that some classrooms remained empty. At this school, over 300 primary school pupils weren't taught because their teachers did not report for duty, heeding a call to stay away until their pay is raised.
They don't have money to take them to schools. Even if they were to sacrifice and take themselves to these schools, the money that they are being paid at the end of the month is not sufficient for a teacher to continue working as a professional.
Teachers are also worried about their safety.
If government is serious about the health and safety of teachers, they should be running water in the schools. As it stands right now, even in the urban centers, some schools do not have running water. And we know that running water is an essential component if we are going to be fighting corona successfully. We need PPEs in all schools. We need to have trained teachers and health personnel officers at each and every school station. We hear that some teachers have been trained, but we don't know if those teachers are going to be at each and every school.
Government has disbursed about $7.4 million to drill boreholes at schools and procure PPEs. However, there are still other challenges students and educators alike have to contend with. When the lockdowns began, private commuter taxis were banned from operating, leaving the state-owned bus company struggling to cope with demand. Now some here feel that if anything is to be salvaged from what remains of this academic year, then the transport issue also needs to be resolved. Parents have expressed frustration over day one's mixed fortunes.
My son's school has already made an effort to make sure that the children are safe, and that is why we have allowed them to go to school today. But they need to have transport so that they can go to school on time and find their teachers there. That is all that we are asking for as parents.
That will give his son a chance to make something out of a very difficult year. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
In Niger, flooding caused by heavy rains has forced more than 200,000 people from their homes. The country's western region has been hardest hit as torrential rain caused the Niger River to overflow. Most of those affected by the floods have been accommodated in schools while waiting to be resettled by the government. This has forced Niger to postpone the start of the new school year, which was scheduled to start on the 1st of October. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
Students in Niger were set to return back to school next month, but their classrooms are occupied by flood victims and need to be freed up.
One of the thorniest problems in the rehousing of flood victims. The government is working to find an urgent solution. I have been sent by the Prime Minister to ensure the availability of site that will have to accommodate the disaster victims because the government will soon make firm decisions to deal with this problem.
Authorities have so far found only 2 sites to accommodate those displaced by the floods. The first one is the Gamo camp. It is supplied with drinking water and electricity, but is too small to accommodate the thousands left homeless.
According to the head of state's instructions, we have to find secure sites to relocate people quickly. This will allow them to leave areas that are easily flooded, but also to free the schools in which they are currently housed. And we have already identified an area that can accommodate them. It's an area that has been developed for a very long time, but unfortunately, this site has not been urbanized because of water problems.
The second site, which is much larger, has no water or electricity.
In order for people to be relocated to this site, we need to make arrangements for water supply. This is the only major handicap at the moment. Water is very important. The water towers that we currently have cannot supply the site with the drinking water, so we are seeking the support of local and international partners to solve this urgent problem.
Arrangements are being made for the site to have essential services so that it is habitable. Authorities hope an effective solution will be found in the next 3 weeks, so the academic year can resume. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Hundreds of exiles have been streaming in from around the world to Sudan since last year. The returnees say they are looking to help rebuild the country as it emerges from 3 decades of autocratic rule. Chao Mgono brings us the story of some of these returnees.
Sudan's economy has been in crisis. After long years of civil war under Omar al-Bashir's rule, U.S. sanctions and the 2011 secession of the oil-rich South. But many Sudanese saw the ouster of Bashir in April 2019 as a new beginning for the country. So when Bashir was forced out, many Sudanese living abroad were eager to return home. Many of them have been away for over 30 years.
There is no comparison between the salary I was paid in Canada and the salary I have here. It is difficult, but thanks be to God, so far my situation here isn't so bad. This is my sacrifice for the sake of the country. So if we were to calculate the gain, we will never return.
I left South Sudan in 2011 after the war and the peace agreement between Sudan and now South Sudan. From the city of Kadugli. I left as a citizen with the clothes I had on and left the home I had been building for 5 years. I left alone. I left my family at home as I thought that this conflict would not last long.
The two are not alone. Many Sudanese have returned to fill posts in government and at state enterprises.
People who return from abroad are welcomed, considering that you are abroad, that you are returning to your family and friends and your country. As for your integration into work or organizations, people from abroad are also welcomed, as they are considered to have different competencies, experiences and education, and that they can offer something to Sudan.
We are Sudanese in the end, and these jobs are not permanent but rather temporary for everyone. Our presence in these jobs is only to provide a service to these people.
While the return has not been universally welcomed, the returnees say they bring experience and knowledge. The other challenge that they face is that they are used to working in a more organized system in more stable countries. That's not always the case in Sudan. The returnees are, however, confident that they will survive the transition. Chao Mgono, CGTN.
The news continues on Africa Live. Time now for our business segment with Uche.
Thank you, Richard. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. South Africa's government wants strict conditions for any guarantees it provides to help its national airline. And a federal judge blocks President Donald Trump's order to ban TikTok in the U.S.
Africa is home to 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. The continent has yet to reach its full farming potential. From support to local farmers and reliance on rain, to exports, new technologies and innovation, how is Africa faring in the agricultural value chain? Well, CGTN traversed the continent to bring you a 6-part in-depth series on food production in Africa. This October on CGTN.
Well, let's start off in South Africa. The country's national treasury wants strict conditions attached to any guarantees it provides for loans to the country's embattled state airline. Now, those guarantees could encourage private lenders to provide financing to South African Airways. Treasury and Department of Public Enterprises officials, as well as representatives of 2 South African banks, discussed ways to restart SAA on Saturday. Of course, SAA halted operations and sought bankruptcy protection back in December. The carrier's administrators say about $613 million is needed for the airline to resume its operations. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is also reportedly prepared to provide guarantees on up to $292 million of that amount. It is also emerging that 20 private sector funders, private equity investors, as well as partners have submitted unsolicited expressions of interest in a restructured SAA, while Ethiopian Airlines Group is also in talks with SAA about providing assistance. Well, let's head to Nigeria. The government is pushing to reverse a persistent trend of deficits in its annual budget. The country's finance minister says budget and treasury experts have been deployed to various agencies around the country to drive up revenue. Well, CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
A crucial meeting of Nigeria's finance officials. The country's dwindling revenue is at the core of conversations here. The oil-dependent economy is tethering on the edge of an economic downturn, its worst in nearly 4 decades. It is fueled by the fall in price of crude oil and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We are all aware that we are facing serious fiscal challenges as a nation, and the only solution available to us is to diversify from the volatile oil revenue and look inwards into the non-oil revenues with special attention to the federal government-owned enterprises.
The government reported a 50% drop in revenues in the first half of the year. Now they're looking inward to explore possible revenue potentials, and finance and revenue experts are expected to harness it.
One of the possible solutions is to look into the non-oil sources of revenues to take advantage of their potentials and to make them robust. We have seen the positive impact on the increase in VAT revenue through the instrumentality of the Finance Act 2019, and also the efforts that have been taken by various arms of government in diversifying the revenue base of government by the revenue-generating agencies. An important sector with huge potentials of revenue generation is the federal government-owned enterprises. The analysis of the revenue and expenditure profile of some of these federal government-owned enterprises show that they have the capacities for improved revenue generation performance.
The vision of this initiative is to ensure that we achieve transparency and accountability of government revenue with special focus to federal government-owned enterprises, improved revenue performance, and ultimately provide sustainable source of funding for government budget execution.
Nigeria's budget deficit for 2020 stands at $27.2 billion. Government has been borrowing to meet up with the shortfall. The Bureau of Statistics puts the country's total debt stock at a staggering $74 billion. But authorities are optimistic about the prospects of government-owned agencies for improved revenue performance. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And in Egypt, a 6-month freeze on loan repayments has come to an end as the country's economic activities gradually resume. Now, in March, Egypt's apex bank decided to put off loan payments in order to ease the pressure on borrowers following an economic downturn caused by the outbreak of the COVID-19. Here's Yasser Hakim with the details.
Egypt is currently registering an average of 120 COVID cases a day, down from around 1,500 a couple of months ago. The success in keeping the pandemic relatively under control has allowed the economy to gradually reopen. Most sectors are resuming work, and production is also increasing. That's why the central bank has not extended a 6-month freeze on loan payments from individuals and companies, although there were demands for an extension.
The decision to freeze loan payments back in March was a good one because it relieved a lot of pressure off borrowers who were unable to pay installments during the pandemic. The CBE didn't extend the loan freeze because banks can't sustain unpaid loans any further. Banks have financial obligations towards clients, and revenues lost in the last 6 months is about 2 trillion Egyptian pounds, which is equivalent to $127 billion.
About 5 million people and 80,000 companies have benefited from this loan payment freeze. Aware that Egyptians are still suffering from the economic fallout caused by the pandemic, the CBE Governor Tariq Amir has ordered financial institutions to restructure the loans for their clients.
Banks should study each case and provide new credit facilities according to the capabilities of each client. For example, if an individual or company proves that he can only pay half his installments because he lost his income during the coronavirus, the bank would restructure the loan payment to suit his new situation.
The economy is slowly recovering from the effects of COVID-19, but the virus itself has not yet been completely eradicated. That's why the government is trying to balance between providing support to those suffering from the pandemic and returning to normality. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And let's head to the U.S. now, where a federal judge has temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's order to ban TikTok just hours before it was due to come into effect. Our correspondent, Jagruti Dev, has the latest out of Washington.
President Trump's ban would have removed TikTok from US app stores, but it will still be available there for now. US District Court Judge Carl Nichols put a pause on the Trump administration's move, granting TikTok an injunction it had filed against the order. TikTok's lawyers say the move violates due process, and the Justice Department's lawyers defended the move, saying it was there to protect TikTok users' personal data. And the judgment was sealed, so the reasoning for the opinion was not given, but the judge didn't rule on a second action that's due to take place in November. The US Commerce Department says that it will ban completely ban TikTok if it doesn't finalize a deal with a US company for its American operations by November the 12th. In a statement, TikTok said that it was pleased with the ruling, adding, "We will continue defending our rights for the benefit of our community and employees." The Trump administration claims that the Chinese-owned app poses a national security threat. TikTok's Beijing-based parent company ByteDance is still working out a partnership deal with US companies Oracle and Walmart. Jagruti Dave, CGTN, Washington.
Now, as an app for entertainment, TikTok has over 100 million users in the United States. Well, CGTN's Yang Yang takes a look at how people react to the latest move.
Another dramatic move in this back-and-forth game between TikTok and the US government. A federal judge has suspended the administration's ban on downloads of the app in America. The result seemed to be welcome news to many young people in the US.
Me and my friends had talked at this problem before, and we both think that it's quite unnecessary just for the government to target on the Chinese companies.
So I think it's definitely a case of it seems like Trump maybe just wanting to make an example out of TikTok and just picking TikTok specifically. So I don't know if I can say it's the right or the wrong move. I think it's just a result of the political situation in the United States.
The company has been caught in a seesaw battle with Oracle and Walmart for selling part of its business to the two US giant companies for nearly a month, after US President Donald Trump suddenly claimed the popular entertainment app is threatening his national security.
They're working to see if they can make a deal, and if they make a deal, they'll have to bring it to me, and I'll either approve it or not. To me, safety is the predominant factor, and we'll see if they can do that. But they're moving along, and let's see what happens.
Chinese government has responded to the tussle, saying it will take necessary measures to safeguard Chinese companies' rights.
China supports the companies concerned in defending their legitimate rights and interests through legal means, and will continue taking all necessary measures to firmly safeguard Chinese companies' rights and interests.
The popular video sharing app has over 600 million users worldwide. Nearly half of them are Chinese netizens.
There should not be borders for science and technology. Everyone has the right to enjoy the fun brought by an app for entertainment.
It is quite irritating because I have a lot of friends in the US who use TikTok as well as I do, and I feel it's getting banned is kind of unnecessary.
There hasn't been an official response from TikTok's parent company ByteDance, but Trump's order stops short of a full ban until November 12, giving its Chinese parent firm time to push for a deal. Yu Yang, CGTN, Beijing.
Well, that is all for now on Africa Live Biz, but still to come on Global Business Africa. Nigeria's government and its labor unions agreed to suspend a planned strike over fuel and power prices. Of course, more on that coming up top of the hour. For now, it is back to you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Uche. So much more news to come after the break. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. In Zimbabwe, the first traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture center has opened in the capital, Harare. Vice President Constantino Chiwenga said the facility will complement the country's healthcare system. Over the years, China has made significant contributions to Zimbabwe's health sector. China has provided aid and deployed medical teams to the African country since 1985.
The Zimbabwe-China TCM and Acupuncture Center is the first of its kind in the African country. The center provides a large array of traditional remedies designed to help patients achieve and maintain health. It follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding between China and Zimbabwe on cooperation in the field of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture.
Experience has shown that including traditional Chinese medicine in a healthcare protocol improves outcome for patients. For example, traditional Chinese medicine can provide good support to patients who suffer from some conditions, particularly those that are chronic and degenerative, for example, low back pain.
This is another outcome of our joint efforts to promote the health of Zimbabwean people and has shown the determination of Chinese and Zimbabwean people to enhance health cooperation and to fight against COVID-19 together.
The ancient system of health and wellness has been used in China for thousands of years, and China has invested in promoting its modernization. In Zimbabwe, TCM comes as a relief for many struggling to receive affordable and effective treatment.
This is a very important development for us, that we have a place where our patients can have their pain relieved without being operated, without going into invasive procedures. Yeah. Even if we have a shortage of medicines, a shortage of analgesic pharmaceuticals, then we know there is an alternative place where they can go and have their pain relief.
We are already in the process of trying to standardize our traditional medicine practices and products. So this is an opportunity for us to learn and improve our practice.
The center is projected to eventually become to a TCM institution with full diagnosis and treatment capacities. Chao Mhono, CGTN.
Let's go to Kenya now, where a dusk to dawn curfew has been extended for 2 months, but reduced to 5 hours a day after a drop in COVID-19 infections. Through a televised address, President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced a further easing of restrictions, including the reopening of bars.
It may not have been a complete end to lockdown restrictions imposed by the government nearly 6 months ago, but for many Kenyans, the further easing of strict measures by President Uhuru Kenyatta point to the reopening of society and the economy. There's been mounting pressure to kickstart the country's ailing economy after months of restrictions have devastated key industries, with close to 2 million Kenyans out of work.
The nationwide curfew enforced throughout the territory of the Republic of Kenya is extended for a further 60 days. The nationwide dusk to dawn curfew will run from 11 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning.
From Tuesday, bars will be allowed to reopen and sell alcohol, while closing times for restaurants have been extended to 10 p.m. Sitting capacity in churches and mosques has been increased by a third, while the number of people attending weddings and funerals has been revised upwards from 100 to 200. The president also urged politicians to follow social distancing guidelines.
We thank Kenyans, but it is we, the political class especially, that is leading the charge in defying laid down protocol.
President Kenyatta says the decision to phase out some of the measures are as a result of the falling COVID-19 infection rates. Experts have, however, warned not enough testing is being done. Meanwhile, the president says schools may have to wait a while longer, possibly to 2021, until the government can guarantee the safety of children. President Kenyatta also extended tax incentives announced earlier this year to 2021 to encourage economic growth. Earlier, he hosted a key conference aimed at charting a responsible path in regards to living with COVID-19. Robert Magila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And we are not done just yet. We've got a pretty interesting sports story coming your way. Stay tuned after the break. Here it comes. A granny weightlifter inspires daughter and granddaughter to pick up the sport early.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live. A Kenyan Olympian weightlifter, Mercy Obiero, is keen on ensuring future generations of her family take up the sport she has been involved in for 2 decades. Obiero is training her daughter and granddaughter in Nairobi. CGTN's Chao Mgono tells us more.
For Chanel Lokoth, being in the gym is as routine as clockwork. And at just 10, she can lift her own body weight thanks to training with a coach with vast experience in competitive weightlifting, her mother.
When she went for Olympics, I was very happy. So I saw her at the TV, and I was very happy. And I said one day even me, I'll go to Olympics.
Chanel's mother, Mercy Obiero, was the second African woman to compete in weightlifting at the Olympics, representing Kenya at London 2012. Now retired from professional competition, the 42-year-old works as a coach and has inspired her daughter and granddaughter to follow in her footsteps.
At the moment, I'm doing weightlifting and I'm also a coach. So I started to train my younger daughter, Chanel. She's very interested. She always goes with me for training, for all the competition. She's like my assistant. In fact, she's always motivating me, Mom, you should do this. Now today you should aim for 200 kilos. So whenever I see her with me in the gym, I always hit my best.
The pandemic has been a blessing in disguise for this weightlifting family, having lived under lockdown for the past month.
It's been something positive for me with my daughter because we've been even more closer than before with her, because we're always together with her in the house, and it has given us a chance to train together even more. We have a bar at home and a few weights, so she just does the technique because we don't have enough weights for her to train.
Obiero, who overcame insurmountable odds to make it in a sport, hopes her efforts will help a new generation of female weightlifters realize their dreams.
It gives me so much joy because I think that all the hard work that I've been putting into my weightlifting finally is mirroring on someone else who is my daughter.
By passing on the baton to the next two generations of her family, Obiero is working to lift her sport to the next level in a country famed for her distance running prowess.
Uganda rally drivers and fans have been part of the Safari Rally's rich history, even during its long hiatus from the World Rally Championship. The return of the historic event to the global roster has cranked up the excitement as CGTN's Leon Sinyange